A masterful collection of poetry and recollection here. Really excellent. Also, earlier on, Angus Kelly talked about the synchronicities, and I think it might also be one that we are talking about a publisher called Tailor, printing the Tailor and Ansty poems. I would say congratulations to Donal for being
and my relations were tailors.
And his relations were tailors too. So there you are, it's all coming together. So, as we know, the Tailor and Ansty poems were based on the Tailor and Ansty, which recreates conversations and the seanchas really of the Tailor Buckley. And of course we have the rather bawdy interjections of his wife Ansty every now and again, which gives us a reflection of, I suppose, where the true life of the local people laid. It's great local folklore, wonderful philosophy of life, way of living and appreciating life and considering life that is very much in tandem with the Celtic mentality. And these obviously also resound with Donal O'Flynn and his experience of life and his outlook on life. Because to be able to write as he has done and so closely identify with the philosophies and emotions that are contained in these poems, it would have to be intrinsically part of yourself too. In the second edition, when Frank O'Connor described the effect of the banning on the Tailor and Ansty by the Irish Censorship Board for being in its general tendency indecent, and the reaction of the couple to the 3 visiting priests who terrorised the tailor into burning a copy of the book. Remember that when this happened, it's at a time where the tailor was about, I think, 81, 2, 3, around that age, and Ansty would have been around 69, 70. And these scions of whatever they thought they were, thought it fit to come along and terrorise these people and make them ashamed of who they were and what they stood for and where they came from. And after being banned for not only did they do that, of course they isolated them within their own community, which is inexcusable. After being banned then for 10 years, when it became available, for more than 20 years, it became a classic of folklore literature, and it didn't become that by any accidental reason. It became that because people could see the intrinsic truth and value that was contained within that work. Also, the harsh treatment of the Tailor and Ansty did leave an indelible mark on the tailor, and it is also said that it shortened Ansty's life. And only the fortitude and the outlook of the tailor himself helped him, I would say, to weather the storm in any way. He used to say, "Glach bog on sail, agus glachig on sail boghu." Take life, fine and easy, and life will be fine and easy for you. Unfortunately, he was to discover that that was not necessarily always true. To show the indignation of Donal's reaction to just this episode, I have asked him if he wouldn't mind my using this poem, checking first of all that he wasn't going to read it himself tonight. And it's the one based on, "There is no one thinks themselves so sound in the head as the mad people." And those words are so true. There's many ways in the world of doing this, including your way, but only my way is correct, so we'll do it fucking my way, all right? If people don't like it, too bad. I'll use all the power at my disposal to shift attitudes, for my vision is the correct one. God sent me this vision. Who do you think you are? Without me, you're a nobody, and nothing, and unknown. Everyone trusts me. In their eyes, I can do no wrong. And in the end, I will be proved right. Past? Don't talk to me about the past. The past don't mean shit to me. It's time for change, major change, and I'm the man to get it done. Our cause is sacred. We will root out evil. I accept only God as my witness. My conscience is clear. I sleep sound at night. Believe me, we will be ruthless. What's to be done will be done. And I think that is a powerful statement of what we're talking about here. The Tailor Ansty are buried in Guggaunbarra, and on the headstone is an epitaph that says, "A star danced, and under that star I was born." I would say that the same is true of Donal O'Flynn when it comes to poetry and creativity. Such another aspect of life different from his normal engineering activities, although there are quite a few of them around here tonight. In Sean O'Freelon's The Silence of the Valley, there's lovely reference to that epitaph when he says, one clear star above the mountain wall gleamed. Seeing it, her eyebrow floated upward softly for sheer joy. Yes, she said quietly, it will be another grand day tomorrow. And her eyebrows sank very slowly, like a falling curtain. Now, Ansty and the tailor were the authentic voice of Muscree in Cork, and richly retold in the poetic voice of another Corkman here tonight. I think that it's great that the voice of a Corkman who is a poet should be used to refocus our attention on the Tailor and Ansty and the great work that it is. I would also say that it will probably lead many people to want to read the original, which is great. It shows West Cork as it was. Real people, no pretensions, no desire to be anything other than be themselves. And I think that this reflects the poet Donal O'Flynn and his attitude and his philosophy about life as expressed in his poetry and in his interaction with people in general. Of course, we've been privileged in the White House to have matured with this collection of poems as it grew, because Donal used to come to Limerick and try them out on us. And I think that that's, another aspect of the type of character and person that Donal is. That generosity of sharing. Earlier, you mentioned Casey O'Flynn's cover design for the book, and Casey, of course, is Donal's sister. Looking at it, I thought it was so apt, because what the cover just said visually was that you keep the tradition alive and blazing, no matter what cold, evil, repressive forces might surround it and try to smother it. Goodness in its broadest sense of an honest reflection of real life will persist and overcome oppression by those, to paraphrase, who think that because a man has read a book, he is a wise man. Donal has read many books and is not short on wisdom and perceptiveness in his manner of rendering these gems of observation in poetic form. His bewilderment at its ever being banned rings true in the many epigraphs that he has selected as gems of truth and wisdom. What is very striking is the sense of loss. of we, Irish people, turning away from our own inherited tradition and philosophy, which was often communicated through the storyteller, the Shanachie, as epitomised in the Tailor Timothy Buckley. Donal has achieved a special deed in this collection by refocusing our attention on what we are and what has shaped our thinking and our philosophy of life in its truest, raw, uncontaminated sense, free from the trappings of perceived or studied wisdom. As a poet chronicler, he urges us not to ostracize the Tailors and the Anstys of this world, but rather to make them part of the rich fabric of what we are, and never again have to witness, as a civilized society, the barbarity of the treatment meted out to an elderly couple living in a remote part of West Cork. Donal takes us on a tour of that world in this impressive collection on a wide range of subjects and reveals how relevant they still are to life today. The pulse of the Irish language resonates through the rhythms of the lines that he has written, giving us an even closer bond and sense of continuation of tradition. He is always passionate, always honest, and we are reminded that we should cherish this heritage. Donal's voice is very individual, and he has shown us that in the Tailor's words, learning is like a suit of clothes. The cloth is there, but it has to be cut to the measure of every man. With that, I declare the book, The Tailor and Ansty Poems, launched. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the highlight of the evening, I call on Donal to let us relish some of what he has written for us this evening. Thank you.
I wish it was stronger.
I hear it.
Is that a quote? I'll start by thanking everybody. Thanks to Kevin O'Shea for the use of the School-Dinner Theatre. Thank you very much to Dominic Taylor for producing the book, beautiful book, publishing it. To John Liddy for the introduction, lovely introduction. Margine O'Brien, lovely job for the evening. I'd ask for a bula boss from Margine. Angus Kelly and Mercier Press, and thank you for travelling up, Angus, and giving us feelings. Charlie, Catherine and John, thank you for the music. To the booksellers and the barmaids and the barmaids, thank you very much for the help. The poets who travelled here this evening, all my friends who travelled here to be with me, very short notice, and I know it's a bank holiday weekend. Thank you all for coming, and thanks for the poems. And I clap you myself for that. I'll read 6 poems. I'll read 6 poems. Well, I'll read 7 because Martine asked me to add one. I won't hold you any longer because it's been a long evening. But just to say that I recommend everybody, if you like the poems, and if you do like the poems, to buy the book. I mean, the book itself is just a marvel. And as John Liddy said in the introduction, he read it when he was about 18, 19. I did the same at about the same time. And he was born in 1952 as well, John Liddy. And we read it about the same time. I forget who gave it to me. I think it was my father that gave it to me because he would be that kind of a rebel anyway. But I remember reading it at the time, and I was amazed that it had been banned for 20 years. I just couldn't understand why it had been banned. which is a great book, just a great read. And especially for me, growing up in Ballyhay, it was just like, I mean, West Cork, where the Tailor grew up, and the type of life and the type of conversations that went on, but just like what I was used to. I mean, that's the way we grew up. And all those philosophies and all those sayings, I mean, they resonated with me at the time. So again, you're talking about coincidences and synchronicity. I forgot a book on one of my journeys back to the Philippines about 3 years ago. And I was in Heathrow Airport, and I saw a copy of the book up for sale, the Tailor Ansty. And I said, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'd forgotten all about it. And I saw it up for sale, I bought it. And I never slept on the plane. It was a 14-hour journey. And I never slept. I read the book, and I had it completely finished by the time I got to the Philippines. I read it again that week, during the week, and I underlined those 57 epigraphs, as we call them. I just underlined those, and I went back through them at random. I just got through them at random, and I wrote a poem around each one. I started off, and you'll see in the book, I started off the epigraphs. I tried to get into the Tailor and talk as the Tailor and talk about them. But very quickly, I just used the epigraphs as an inspiration for different poems. So that's where they all came out of. And as Martin rightly said, over the 2-year period that I wrote these, I read them out down in the White House. Some of them got a good reception. Some of them got a very bad reception. Tom thought some of them were not poetry at all. But anyway, we kind of polished it up, and Dominic very kindly put it into a book. And it's lovely. I love it. I love the book. And thank you all for coming along. So, without further ado, oh yeah, by the way, the other thing is, when this is all done, you're all invited up to Packy's for drinks. The first one is on me.
Where do you go?
Okay. The first poem I'll read is number 58. Now, there was an old, in Ireland, the poets were powerful. They were powerful people at one time, and every kingship and every clan chieftain, they put up with the poets in the end, because the poets became almost as powerful as the chieftains. And they were great. They continued the whole history, and they were great historians. And to become a poet, you had to memorize an enormous amount of literature. But if you upset a poet, you daren't upset a poet, because if you did, I mean, he could cut you asunder. So they were afraid, they were in dread of their life of the poets. So this poem is kind of a poem along that theme. And the epigraph came from page 203 of the book. For he was a powerful and a barbarous man with his tongue, all true poets are. That you might marry a ham and bear him a rasher, cut down in his prime by a flake from his slashers. May you lose your fine looks, turn into a hag, that men drunk or sober never rise to the shag. That your teeth might fall out from grums putrid with pus, make the chewing of your food forever a curse. May you break wind all day from morning to night, your space stenched forever by foul-smelling shite. May you be accused of a foul crime never committed, ostracized by your kin, be forever tormented, till the day that you die, or go madder and madder, slither down from on high, slimy snake on a ladder. And when your friend Nick comes for your soul, may he find you hung tongue-tied from a telegraph pole. You're right dirty old bitch, you. That's not anyone I know now. 59. My sister Radian, while I was writing these poems, my sister Radian had, she was diagnosed with cancer, with a malicious, a huge cancer. And they literally, it was described to us that they put a box over her stomach and lower regions, and they literally took everything out. It was a horrendous operation involving huge graft and everything. So this poem was inspired at that time. She's a fighter, real fighter. Like she's in great shape today. She's a real fighter. And the line that inspired it was, and the man who would beat him would be the devil of a man entirely. Page 206. Throughout the afternoon and into the night, she remained in the operating theatre, following the longest day and the great halfway phone news all the cancer was got. In our excitement at the good news, we'd forgotten reconstruction was yet to come with the magic plastic team. Make new muscle from the thigh or from the hip. Ring us, no matter what the time is here, just ring us anyway. Let us know how she's getting on. These, our fastest days, move tortuously slow. Denied gauze are recalled and entreated with the devil knows what blood promises. For her steel strength, for the genius surgeon's skill, for God's unfathomable will, candles splutter and burn. This one they picked out tonight, so it comes from page 101. And this is what inspired Catesy, but the front picture. The quotation is of the epigraph. The world is only a blue bag. Knock a squeeze out of it when you can. And that was one of his sayings. He had a lot of very good sayings. I was saying to Angus Kelly earlier tonight, David Niven wrote an autobiography. The moon is only a blue balloon, and just that type of theme again of the moon is only a blue balloon. But he had a very hard life. It's a very sad book in places, but a great book to read, a fantastic read. Another great book people should get. The moon is only a blue balloon. So anyway, it takes only a fraction of the face muscles needed for a frown to form the most spectacular sunrise smile, and laughter is what's needed now. Full-blown belly laughter, death's deadliest enemy. Handsome as the prize of a tickle, cuddle yarning talk, loud with laughter, hilarious. Sparkling eyes everywhere, geese cackling, cows lowing, sheep baying, show-stopping laughter. For, after all, what harm's in it? I'll bet the sneaky snake broke his arse laughing with God as they watched disbelieving Adam and Eve cover up and creep into their cruel world. And this one, actually for Barney, this one is, I woke up in a nightmare one night. At the time I was doing this as well, Barney was putting a book together on Desmond O'Grady, and Megan and myself, we helped a little bit, just a little bit in it, but Barney did a fantastic book on the poet, a Limerick poet. He's one of our senior poets in Ireland. I mean, really top tier, a great poet. Travelled the world and got his doctorate in Harvard. Taught for years in Italy, knew Ezra Pound and all the poets of that genre. And a poet that's not read enough in Ireland. But at that time, and we went to see him in Kinsale. He lives in Kinsale now. Barney and myself went down. Barney went down many times, but I went down once with him. And it's like, to describe where he lives in a little cottage down overlooking the Kinsale Harbour. And he's a recluse, really. A very private man, but books everywhere and all sorts of things. I mean, memorabilia that have, priceless memorabilia that he's got there. And a lovely man. So my father was a different kind of a character. He was a great character. My father was. I woke up in a nightmare. I saw the two of them together, and I wrote this poem. I imagined the two of them together in my father's house. You old men. Sorry. The epigraph is: I declare to God, but the Almighty has more patience than I give him credit for.
What page is it on?
Page 45. It came from page 153 in the book. You old men shouting woke me from nightmare, shaking hands with the poet, farrowing, courtesying, banding in Gaelic, ye both breaking joints in splintered speech. He passing appreciation on your art, you honouring him with recognition, his books everywhere as in your Kinsale cavern, his escape to the mad loud lockup, you browsing literature titles, eclectic of all life's importance from the onset, your head already abroad, a poem in the making. A great stylized black and white canvas veined with local history, euphoric titles in forgotten Gaelic, poems, the lives of poets dead, fishing rods, dry flies, wet worn maps, compass, alfresco pursuits, antique crafted English shotguns, knowledge in science. He, recognizing a fellow teaser of the gods, men beyond mere mortal, loud revellers, genius's genius, the company of real Hell's Angels.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think that eloquent sequence of poems speaks for itself and gives a true flavour of what Donal is stating about the Tailor Ansty in this collection. It just remains for me to, before I invite the musicians to play us out, thank everybody who was here tonight. Whatever part you had to play in the evening's events, every single person here tonight has created a unique occasion which will never happen again. And I think that is something very important for us to take away with us and to remember that everything we are involved in and all occasions like this are very, very special events indeed. When they're focused on the culture that we have experienced this evening, a continuation of our tradition and a respect for what has gone before us and a plan to maintain it for the future that is yet to come, then I think it's a very, very good accident of fate that we are all gathered here this evening. Also, let me remind you that you have the unique opportunity of the poet being available to sign whichever copies you would like to purchase on the way out. Thank you.